bit of a case study with working with Norwich Community Sports Foundation. So just in terms of introductions, Stevie, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Afternoon. So yeah, Steve Bramble, lucky enough to be Director of Education and Programs at the Foundation here at Norwich City. Been here for 24 years, so seen it grow from a workforce of 4 or 5 to currently over 250. So workforce development is part of the daily challenge in the sector, as long as making sure that we've got participants and programs that are achieving the outcomes that we do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stevie. And I'm Kath Percival, CEO of Sports Structures. Haven't been as long as the organisation as Stevie, but not too far away. And yeah, kind of my obviously remit is to kind of manage the business, but also take quite a lead in terms of our learning and development around our education provision, and also kind of working with kind of our digital offer and also our consultancy and online offer as well. So just wanted to kind of give a bit of an overview about a partnership with the foundation. Probably been in kind of 9 years, I think it is, Stevie,
Yeah.
from memory. And ultimately looking at how do we support workforce needs to the foundation, and a lot of that has been done through the provision of apprenticeship standards across a range really of those, as you can see on screen, coaching, marketing, business development and management as well. We also work with the foundation to act as their first sport recognised centre to deliver qualifications relevant to the needs of the workforce, whether that be internal workforce or kind of their kind of community delivery as well. And also we've supported the workforce through courses around tutoring and assessing, and also supported therefore the workforce to deliver themselves. So Stevie, do you want to add anything onto that?
Uh, really successful partnership, works for us nicely, and that's a really good summary. But I think what we're going to talk about shortly is probably going to take it to the next level, hopefully for us.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so hopefully, what we're hoping to achieve by 4 o'clock, no, I'm joking, by 1:30, absolutely, is looking at how this foundation of successfully implementing the new level 2 certificate in coaching and kind of reflecting on kind of you as an organization and what your needs are and how you can develop that tailored coaching pathway, because that, the level 2 certificate now is being used as a mechanism for deployment. And I think it's always nice to share some kind of examples of practice of how other organizations are using it. So then it obviously kind of gets you to reflect and make sure that your offer is fit for purpose. So that's kind of what we're hoping to achieve. And then the challenge, I'll hand over to Stevie if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So where we've found ourselves in a position where we've historically used NGB qualifications, predominantly probably the FA ones in all honesty, how they've changed post-COVID, whether they're going online, how regular they are, how accessible they are, and perhaps how relevant they are to the work of a foundation. Our staff are working in a variety of different environments. It's not just about working with a grassroots club, as some of the quals have become. And some of the main barriers were the delivery model, so taking staff out of the business for up to 9 to 10 days to achieve a course. A lot of the courses were delivered during half terms, which is our peak time, so the delivery model didn't fit. The content wasn't necessarily relevant in terms of it's very much focused around the technical, tactical elements now, whereas actually the staff that work within the foundation sector have to be wearing 5 or 6 different hats at a time. So perhaps focusing more on differentiation and inclusion, as well as working with the more able performers within the group, but equally looking at being more flight of foot. So how do you react when the equipment changes or the school hall is unavailable and you've got to go outside, or vice versa? There's far more movable dynamics within a foundation than there are perhaps in a grassroots football team. The timelines as well, in terms of getting people through it, working out when the next course was, it's very rigid, and the cost for us was growing as one of our biggest expenditures as a foundation. And we were looking at it again, actually, we're fighting against ourselves and we're paying for it. And that comes at a time when there's a growing need to recruit and develop more high quality staff. And that's what the reputation is built on, and it's what needs to be the building blocks and critical infrastructure that builds us moving forward. So we found ourselves in terms of a training program that we've used historically now no longer being efficient for us, and we need more staff to come through that training program. So we're almost getting hit by it twice in terms of staff not coming through it and it not being fit for purpose anymore. So yeah, what do we do? I guess that's the focus of this brief chat this afternoon. So we're aware of looking at other level 2 qualifications that are out there. We looked at the multi-skills quals, we've used them quite a bit. And then started to explore the level 2 certificate in coaching and understanding how that generic qual is then enriched by adding the technical tactical elements from different sports, and then actually reviewing it and going, the coaches that we work with work across multiple different sports. So what is the generic sport offer? And that enables us to uncover the level 2 certificate in coaching on sport and physical activity. So it was able to start to work across a plethora of different environments, sporting contexts. And it means that they're not focusing on just one sport and actually being able to transfer their skills and knowledge between multiple disciplines, without having to do a level 2 in 9 different sports. That's going to take the best part of 100 days to achieve that. It's just not realistic. The content is contextual, so we're able to have the ability to work with First for Sport and First for Structures to bespoke our whole learning program. So when we talk about case studies, examples, or competency-based questions and evidencing, all the terminology within our learner workbooks are related to programs, environments that they would work in. So we can talk about, imagine you were delivering in school X, and our learners will know school X. If you're working within the KICS program, so working around social inclusion, we can set some of our safeguarding tasks based around specific coaching sessions, programs that our staff work in. So one, they're getting the accredited qualification, but two, they're actually getting that contextualized learning. So when they do go back onto the grass or onto the playground or to the multi-use areas, they're actually in that environment where they've practiced, learned, and developed them skill sets. The delivery format for us has now been able to have complete flexibility. So we have a couple of different models where we can condense it in terms of sort of a 4 to 5 day condense, but also have the option to extend it and do 2-3 hours on an evening on a weekly basis for a longer period of time. For those that perhaps have a 9 to 5 standard job but want to get into coaching, they can't take a sustained period of annual leave just for a level 2 coaching qual. So for us to be able to extend the learner journey over an evening for multiple weeks of engagement, that's opened up a new potential workforce for us who we can upskill alongside a main job, or potentially an income job that's perhaps not a career, such as a Tesco's or something like that, where they need to earn the money, but our training program now fits and aligns better than perhaps it did previously. And also the working with sports structures, we've embedded the safeguarding training in as well. So to be able to work towards that dual certification of level 2 coaching qual alongside the safeguarding, that means if we just bring to the table the first aid and the DBS elements of it, you're almost securing your bench standards for minimum operating standards for coaches. But the biggest things there is the bespoke element. That's what's excited us, and that's perhaps where we've had most success, Kath.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the good thing is with the level 2 certificate, it is obviously mapped to the CIMSPA Coach Standard. And now those occupational standards are being used more and more across the industry, which is great, because then obviously from a deployment perspective, it makes it, a lot more applicable and appropriate.
So what does it work? We have currently 2 models of delivery. We're trialing. We're into delivery. So what does it look like? There's the workforce model, which is condensing that down to that sort of 4 to 5 day intense period. So if that member of staff joins us, we can really consolidate their learning over a shorter period of time. Then they have the distance tasks of coaching, which they can do as a volunteer within sessions. But the main bit there is that it's about condensing the period of time and the ability to start it whenever we want to start it. So being quite reactive, if we have a new program, we need new staff, we can quickly fast track through the registration process a new cohort. What does that look like? It's group delivery. We deliver face to face because we think that personal engagement is massive in terms of staff talent ID. Again, something that we've lost when some of the NGB quals have gone online. You don't have that face to face where you can't see individuals, their character, their personality, which tends to be what we really look for, and then we can give you the technical, tactical skills and knowledge on top of that. The timeline for implementation for us, we were able to move really quickly, of having a bank of sort of 100 volunteers regularly, a bank of staff that are on level 1s as assistant coaches that we can then upskill to level 2 to be lead session staff. So that has enabled us to do that. What the outcomes are, our staff are now completed that level 2 qualification. They're looking at final assessment stage for their practical delivery. So it's very much the normal level 2 model. I think the outcomes for us, though, is their learning is relevant to us, and they're not saying, how does that work for me, or what does that mean in this setting? The whole learner journey is based on the work they do, the programs they deliver, the equipment they have, and the venues they deliver in, when they're working on behalf of the foundation. So the workforce model is condensed, it's intense, it's sort of 4 to 5 days delivery with final assessment. And that's very different to the second model that we've got, which is something that we've developed from our RFE program, so post-16 education. They had a real drive to embed a qual within our college program, but again, taking 8 to 9 days for level 2 out of the timetable of asking students to come in during the summer holiday, it was a barrier. But the benefits, if we were to achieve it, would massively outweigh it from a foundation point of view. So we've ripped the model again completely. We use exactly the same learner resources, exactly the same PowerPoints and teaching delivery styles. But rather than condensing it, our college students are doing 2 hours a week. So they'll have it built into their enrichment option. So say at 2:30 till 4:30 on a Monday afternoon, it's sports coaching enrichment. So they're doing that over 36 weeks for 2 years. That's their 72 weeks. They're getting 144 hours of delivery to get them through that model. It's extended. There's more contact time than we need to have, but we're able to push and dive in a little bit deeper and get some greater understanding, because a lot of them will jump straight to level 2 rather than doing a level 1 first, because they're studying level 3 sports qual. So off the back of that, the way to negate doing a 1 and then a level 2 is by extending the period of time that you have. So we will pad out some of the early stages of delivery with more simplified content than level 2, but they will just see it as part of their level 2 coaching qual. So we've got that group up and running at the moment. They are currently working through their first unit of the first half term. And again, it's all branded. It's all Norwich City contextualised, foundation contextuals in terms of imagery, situations, scenarios, mentoring staff in the building that are delivering it day in, day out, who they can go and relate to. So that will achieve for us a new pipeline of workforce coming through, a younger age group. But equally, when you put it alongside the other model, it enables us to upskill staff who perhaps are not available for longer in a period of time, mainly because they've got a 9 to 5 job that's their only source of income to work around. So the flexibility of this has given us 2 delivery models, the 2 hours a week or the condensed model. And we're now seeing a real shift in terms of the numbers of staff coming through. So that workforce recruitment, but equally now that workforce development bit happening alongside it at the same time, because we're not identifying staff members and then having to wait 2, 3, 4 months to put them on the next course. We can activate a new cohort at any stage off the back of a recruitment evening or a need for new staff.
Brilliant. And Stevie, can you just talk a little bit about maybe how your own workforce are delivering this? So it's not a sports workforce, it's your own, because I think that's been a success story maybe over the last 5 years.
That's probably been the key to unlocking the success of the contextual bit, because before we started delivering, we were working with sports structures to identify a small workforce within the foundation who could be tutors. We've worked with them to achieve their tutor qualifications, their assessor qualifications. Off the back of that, they can now deliver this qual. So to have them in the working group that wrote the qualification spec around how we deliver the units made complete sense. So while the level 2 is the first for sport level 2, effectively what we've done is we've ripped up the whole spec and put it back together again in a different order, in an order that's relevant for us. So for example, safeguarding will sit between 3 or 4 different units normally, whereas we've extracted that with our head of safeguarding here and made a bespoke safeguarding unit so that everything's contextualised. Same with risk assessment. Rather than having the inclusion elements, we now deliver a disability sport unit within the qualification. So being able to get the staff to deliver it and bring their own expertise in is huge. So when we're delivering the inclusive sport model, our head of disability sport will lead that whole module throughout it. And it's not one tutor who's expected to know every scenario, every program, every situation. Because we've developed a tutoring workforce, we can bring in expertise for the relevant modules that we're covering at that time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stevie. Just wanted to open up to the floor. Does anyone have any questions so far on this? Because I appreciate we've given you quite a lot of information. Just want to open up if anyone wants to come on the chat or come off mute. I'm more than happy to take any questions at this point. Questions so far? Questions? Okay. Okay, please feel free to pop stuff in the chat if you want to, not a problem. This is really just a little bit kind of adding to what Stevie has said, really. With the course from First to Sport, there's not necessarily a portfolio that you get. It's about how can you be creative and contextualize the assessment tools for the learners that you've got on course. So I think what Stevie's done a brilliant job in, as he said to you before, is looking at, okay, what do the learners need? How can we contextualize a lot of the assessment criteria to make sure it lands? And we get that knowledge and understanding, but we also get the application in practice in a practical context as well. So what Stevie has done is we've got a portfolio that, again, if people were interested in delivering, I'm sure we can share with you, you can then take that as a model to then use within your own kind of cohorts, etc. So there's delivery resources in terms of a delivery model and an associated portfolio. Again, as I say, we've tried to make it engaging from an imagery perspective, but also from making sure the questions fit and people can see the relevance of it. Anything that you want to add there, Stevie?
We were really key in a world of digital learning that we kept a hard resource pack, because people like working through a pack. And just a silly thing that it's landscape rather than portrait makes it so much easier to write on when it's in a folder, for those that have done other NGB quals of trying to work over the rings in the middle of it. But a hard folder is definitely the preference for us, which is why we don't deliver using digital resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it depends on the learners. And this, as I say, this is why it's really relevant, because it's been really contextualized to the cohorts that Stevie is delivering to. Just in terms of our offer as well. So along with working with kind of Norwich as a partnership, we also delivered the level 2 certificate as an isolated course. So if somebody wants to book on and do this, they can do it digitally. So going back to what Stevie said, the face-to-face is really valuable, but we also get people that don't want to necessarily wait for a national governing body course. They want to do something as they progress and do it kind of in a self-directed way. So we also have some e-learning modules to bring that theory to life, and then obviously learners go away and do their practical coaching. So again, this is available if anyone wants to chat about it, just in terms of kind of covering the majority of the assessment criteria around understanding your role as a coach, safe environments, developing your coaching practice. And then we've also got an additional module in there around facilitating learning. Currently in the specification, it touches on communication, but not necessarily how people learn, and kind of ways in which to feedback. A lot of the how to coach skills that I think people do need to align with the technical as well. So we've gone into a little bit more depth in that module around how people learn, methods of communication, and what does effective feedback look like, because I think those are kind of key, facets that are really important in coaching practice. Okay. So just in terms of logistics of the partnership and how does this work? So Stevie talked about how it's delivered. This is kind of how it works when we work together. So absolutely owned the learning program, and the relevant resources are with Norwich as a foundation. They've invested in the time in that. That's theirs. And obviously, as we said before, the workforce deliver the qualification. We've worked with them to upskill them, or in some cases, they've already got the relevant qualifications and just need an orientation, in which that will either come from ourselves or Stevie because of his experience in delivering. So people are orientated prior to any delivery. In terms of our role, we're obviously the first support recognised centre, and with that comes an EQA, external quality assurance requirements. So we have to liaise with the awarding body around that, but also submit relevant mapping documentation. So where a level 2 is being contextualised, obviously relevant to relevant cohorts, we have to then submit that to show how that program has been modified and how it hits the requirements of the qualification. We also obviously register the event, the learners and the workforce, and obviously undertake the quality assurance. So hopefully then Stevie and his team can just focus on the delivery. We've got all the administration bits that sometimes can be a little bit problematic. We try and take that kind of ownership away from Stevie, so he can just focus on delivery and getting those learners through and ensuring a really positive experience on the course.
Yeah,
So
completely. And
do you
then
want to add on that?
with the IV element, so the internal verification, technically we could do that ourselves. We've got IVs in situ. I just personally don't like it as good practice, because I'm asking staff to mark their own homework as organisation. And if they're not happy with it, it leads to some really difficult conversations with colleagues who you've got a really good rapport with. So we've opted to keep the IV element away from us and purely focus on the delivery element.
Brilliant. Thanks. Okay, so just a question to the floor then, really, in terms of if we've kind of shared some examples of kind of how this is being used. Just in terms of your experiences, what are your biggest challenges in terms of recruiting and developing, your workforce or potential workforce? Been brilliant to hear from you, whether you want to come off mute. I can't necessarily see the chat, unfortunately, so I couldn't unshare my screen if people have commented in the chat. But any thoughts? Be great to hear from you.
Just a quick question for Steve, really. Do you cover any mental health training with your coaches at all? Does mental health delivery and support to children come into your remit?
Yeah, good question. So we've got 4 mental health specific programs that we deliver, and each of the staff that deliver that are qualified mental health first aiders. We don't use it as a core prereq for our core delivery staff, but those that are working on our mental health focus programs have got mental health first aider qualifications. But we do have the ability in this qual to add what I've called ghost units. So you build it into the qual, it's just not an assessed module. So for example, a lot of us coaches will work in schools. Actually, they need to know some of the acronyms with working within the school setting. And that doesn't sit within a coaching qualification anywhere, but they need to know it. So we'll just build an extra ghost unit that doesn't sit on the qualification spec around terminology and practice when working in a school setting. So there's no reason why you couldn't develop a ghost unit around supporting mental health with participants within sessions.
Right. I guess our biggest problem is, as a small organisation, and we desperately are getting to the stage where we're turning so much work away in schools and communities. We need to recruit a lot more coaches. We've already sort of linked up, Kath, as you're probably aware, with Ross around the modules you can support us with. We did look originally, because we do a lot of work with military veterans, at putting on our own courses, but I think trial and error has proved that to be a bit more challenging than sort of tagging on to your courses directly. And from the last webinar that Ross did, I think we, were certainly sort of buying into the training that was talked about with that. And then as we build up our workforce, I think this is the sort of model where we want to again continue have some sort of CPD programs for all our coaches. I think that's going to be sort of crucial going forward.
Yeah, I think that kind of ongoing development is really essential, isn't it? And it's just kind of what that looks like. And if you can build, as Stevie said, if you could have a model like this where you can ghost content in, it's great because it gives people a longitudinal journey, but again, a contextualized one, an appropriate one, depending on the context that they're working in, which is really good. This is why this is super flexible. And again, it can be adapted depending on what the needs are. So, especially so, for example, in the spec, it says about they need to coach or be seen coaching. But you can, in most cases, can set the time frame in which those coaches need to deliver for. So if for example on a kicks program, normal delivery I know is 40 minutes, you can actually say, well, it's going to be 40 minutes because that's the environment that coach will be operating in. If it's another session, maybe a volleyball, sometimes they deliver an hour and a half. Okay, well, we're going to need to see you for an hour and a half because that's the environment that you're going to go into. So I think this is where this comes to life. But I agree with you, it's about the CPD that supports this, because this is a start of a driving license. I think once most of us in the room are probably quite aware of, is actually once you start to deliver and coach, you kind of think about applying this in practice, but then it's actually your learning experiences on the court, on the pitch, whatever, actually start to shape you, and then your development that you need to support you as a coach. So this is a starting point, really. It's a starting journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jim, for sharing. Anyone else want to share in terms of any kind of recruitment or challenges with development of workforce at all? No. Okay. If there's not any questions, that's fine. Happy to take questions away as well. I appreciate not everyone wants to kind of come off mute, but if to say, more than happy to take questions remotely. So just in terms of how we can support here, if this can work for you, obviously open to have dialogue around that or support you in any way. Again, this doesn't have to be a regulated qualification. I think that's something that is quite important to mention. A lot of organizations can use this as a framework to support their own coaching practice and deliver it in a non-regulated way. So still use the relevant learning outcomes and assessment criteria, but it doesn't have a formal assessment process. So again, it can be used in two ways, a regulated qualification route or a non-regulated route. So, we work with some organizations that maybe just want one or two modules, for example, to support their coaches' knowledge and understanding. So there's different things that we can do there. In terms of offer, so if it wanted to be similar to the Norwich offer that in which we work, it's normally an initial set of fee, and that's just to make sure your workforce are registered and have got the relevant certification. Any mapping that needs to be done and submitted to the awarding organisation, and orientation. Again, that can be recorded, or it could be a one-to-one, or one with a group, and that can be obviously delivered virtually. It doesn't have to be a practical stuff. And then obviously per qualification costs, if you wanted to go down a regulated route, you've got, unfortunately, qualification, registration and administration for any event that you put on a portal. You've got quality assurance, which again, as Stevie said, obviously, in Norwich's case, they use us as a workforce to do that and have that independence. But we recognise that some organisations have quality assurers internally as well. So again, that's something that we can use. It doesn't have to be done by us, as long as those quality assurers are registered with us and understand our procedures and the way that we do quality assurance, then that can be aligned, and it doesn't need to be an extra cost. And obviously use of material from the foundation. Stevie, I don't know if you want to say anything about that as well, in terms of how you're happy to kind of share some of the delivery models that you've done and the portfolio that might be useful for other organisations.
Happy to share any of the delivery models that we've done for those that are working with yourselves, Kath. No issue with that in terms of how we do it, how we structure a learning program, things like that. Obviously the learning resource is perhaps a little bit more bespoke and is really based on our programs and our schools and our venues, so it perhaps loses some of that contextual relevance to it. But in terms of delivery philosophies and learner journeys and timetables, schemes of work, 100%.
Okay. So in terms of where do we go from here? If you want to connect with us, please feel free to reach out. If you want to maybe catch up with Stevie and just talk about some of his challenges and some of the stuff that he's overcome and how it works, then obviously we've got our contact details on the screen there. We will stay on to answer any questions that anyone has, but if you haven't, obviously you're free to enjoy the rest of your day. A big thanks for your engagement. But again, we'll stay on for the next 5 minutes just in case you do have any questions. Perfect.
Just a question for Steve, really. So our focus, Steve, is training military veterans and others, such as blue light workers, ex-teachers, to become qualified sports coach practitioners. Excuse me. Once they're trained, and the training that we give them includes delivering a mental health program that we deliver to schools. We're doing a 2-year funded program at the minute, supporting military children across schools. We have a program we call Mind Your Head, and that's intended to sort of use sport, engage the children, and give them confidence, support around anxiety, trauma-related mental health issues, and we're just putting together some new marketing stuff. And a comment I've had from a head teacher that we worked in last year came through this morning. Excuse me, which said, I was blown away on Friday when such and such a girl stood up before 150 parents to do a quiz for parents. We couldn't believe the confidence she showed, and that's all down to the programme that she was part of that you delivered last year. We're finding that to be more and more the case. The children have got so little confidence that if I had 100 more coaches tomorrow, I could probably find them work to do. We're turning that much work away. But I guess my sort of question is, you're based in Norfolk area. If ever we come across veterans, and we do, from other parts of the country, is that something that you'd be interested in us sharing with you?
Yeah, 100%. We've got a large veterans program ourselves, but it's not around employability exit routes. It's around support and well-being. So there's a catchment pool that we can feed into, most definitely. But yeah, any staff member who's got an interest to work and have an impact, always interested in. So yeah, by all means, please do.
Right. Okay. All right.
Sounds really positive.
I'll pick up your details. I guess the slides and everything are going to be shared, Kath.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll send them. I'll send them across.
Yeah, I'll pick up
Absolutely.
your details and maybe drop you an email at some point, Steve. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, please do.
Brilliant.
Please
Awesome.
do. Good to see you, Jim.
Okay, thanks very
Thanks,
much.
Jim.
Thanks. Bye. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye. Brilliant. Cool. I think we can stop the recording now. I think everyone's left. Collins, you there, Col? Don't know if I can stop it. Stop recording. There we go. We're good. Stopping.